All right, so we've done parabolas, circles, and ellipses, and now we're doing hyperbolas. So hyperbolas and ellipses kind of go hand in hand. So hyperbolas are kind of just ellipses turned inside out. So I'm just going to go and say that hyperbolas are the opposite of ellipses. And that's how I kind of want you to think about them. Not kind of, that's how I do want you to think about them. They are the opposite of ellipses. Okay. So if you think back to the ellipses, you would have some fraction plus another fraction equals 1. Now with hyperbolas, instead of the plus in the middle, it's a minus. So hyperbolas go with subtraction. Subtraction, there's a subtraction in the middle. Okay. But it still has to be equal to 1. It is still equal to 1. Equal to 1. It has to be equal to 1. If it's not equal to 1, we have to make it so it is equal to 1. Okay. I have the equations right here for you guys that you can jump into and use if you want. I'm just going to go and do this example, so I want you to try and follow it. Okay. So first we need to find the center, then we transverse axis, which the transverse axis is the axis which the graph opens. The graph opens. And it's always the one that comes first. Like this one is going to be the x-axis or the horizontal axis because the x was what came first. If this was a y-squared first, though, it would be the y-axis. Okay? Then we have to find our vertices, the foci, and the asymptotes. Remember, you can never touch asymptotes. Never touch asymptotes. It's kind of like the directrix on parabolas. Asymptotes you can never touch, but asymptotes guide the graph, so it tells you where to go. And then we're going to graph this hyperbola. Okay? So first things first, let's find our center. So we don't have any pluses or minuses with my x or my y. So the center here is at 0, 0. Okay. Then the transverse axis. We've kind of talked about this already. The x is what came first, so that is my transverse axis. So the trans-axis is the x-axis, or the horizontal axis. Okay. Now we need to find our vertices. So to find the vertices, we need to figure out what is a squared and what is b squared, because we still have a squared and we still have b squared when we're using hyperbolas, except for now our a squared is always the one that comes first. It doesn't matter if it's bigger or smaller, it's always the one that comes first. So a squared comes first, b squared is second. Okay, so 25 is my a squared, 16 is my b squared. And it's just a coincidence that 25 is bigger than 16. If this was 16 here and that was 25, this one would still be a squared. A squared is always the one that comes first. Okay, so then if a squared equals 25, then a equals 5. And it's the x-axis, so my vertices are positive and negative 5 on the x-axis. So it's going to be 5, 0, and negative 5, 0. Those are the vertices. Okay, and I'm just going to go and graph these things. So my center is 0, 0. My vertices are positive 5, 0, negative 5, 0. Okay, vertices. Now let's find the foci. So before, when we were finding the foci, we were using c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Remember, these are opposite of ellipses. So now it's going to be c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So for the foci, it's c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So that's going to be 25 plus 16 equals c squared. So c squared equals 41, which means c equals the square root of 41, which is about 6.4. And I'm just going to go out and draw these. So 6.4, and it's always in the direction of your trans-axis. So we're going to go out 6.4, go out 6.4. There's my foci. Okay. Now we have to find the asymptotes. And the easiest way to find these asymptotes, we've already gone out our A. We need to use our B. We haven't used it yet. So B squared equals 16, which means B equals 4. Square root both sides. So from this point, from my vertices, I'm going to go up and down 4. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, down 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to do it from this dot too. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I have a little rectangle. I'm just going to draw a dotted line all the way around this rectangle. Okay. These aren't my asymptotes yet, but these are going to help me find my asymptotes. So I'm just going to connect these lines right here. And these are still just going to be dotted lines though. So that goes out this way, that goes out that way. Okay, and so my asymptote, we're at 0, 0, so we don't have to worry about shifting this in any way. It's going to be y equals rise, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 over run, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rise over run, x. And it's always the positive, and it's the same negative. So we're going to go up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and left 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means we have negative 4 over 5x also. So we have two asymptotes. Okay. And now we've graphed all this. So once you have something that looks like this, it's kind of like a target. Once you have something that looks like a target, then you can graph it. And you just go out and you go right along those asymptotes, but you never touch them. You just go out along that way. And you're done. That's all. Okay. One more example. Okay, let's look at this one. So we have to find the center, transverse axis, same thing. We're finding everything the same. First, though, we look at this equation here. This is not set equal to 1, so we have to make it set equal to 1. So we have to think 400 divided by what will equal 1 by itself. So you're going to divide by 400. And whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other side. So I'm going to divide everything by 400. And there's a couple ways to simplify this. So one of the easiest ways to simplify it, I've already kind of showed you guys the way if you do the fraction. Now let's just do 400 divided by 25. So if you go 400 divided by 25, that's 16. So this part of the equation becomes y plus 1 squared over 16. Okay, now let's do this part. 400 divided by 16 is 25. So that's minus x minus 4 squared over 25. 400 divided by 400 is 1. And you guys should know that. Okay, now let's find our center. So the center, this is a y right here. So that's my y coordinate. This is my x coordinate. So the center is at 4, because it's always the opposite, negative 1. Okay. Now let's see what our transverse axis is. The y is what came first. So the trans-axis is always the one that comes first. It's always, always, always the one that comes first. Is the y-axis, or the vertical axis. Okay. Now let's find our vertices. To find our vertices, we have to use a squared and b squared. Remember, the first one is always a squared. The second one is always b squared. And notice here, a squared is smaller than b squared, but it's still a squared because it came first. Okay, so a squared, if a squared equals 16, that means a equals 4. Okay, so at this point, once I have that, I'm going to graph my center. So my center is 4, negative 1, right there. And now I need to find my foci. or not my foci, my vertices. I know A equals 4, and I know that my trans-axis is the vertical axis. So I'm going to go up and down 4 from this point, and I'm going to go up and down because it's vertical. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then you can just look at these and see that that point right there is 4, 3. So 4, 3 is one of my vertices, and this point right here is 4, negative 5. So 4, 3, and 4, negative 5. Those are my vertices. Okay. Now let's find the foci. So to find the foci, you always do c squared equals a squared plus b squared, because it's the opposite. It's always the opposite of what that is. So that's going to be c squared equals 16 plus 25. So c squared equals 41. So c equals the square root of 41, kind of going off the page, which the square root of 41 is 6.4. I think we just did that on the other one. Cool, 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 cool. So 6.4. And let's just graph this. So if here's my center, the foci always go out in the direction of my axis. So I'm going to go out 6.4 from this point. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.4. Right there. Okay? And then the last thing we do is find our asymptotes. And we have to use b to find our asymptotes. So if b squared equals 25, that means b equals 5. And I've already gone up and down. Now I have to go left and right. So I'm going to go left and right 5 from this point and from this point. So from my vertices. So I'm going to go left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From this point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm just going to draw my dotted line box. Okay. And then here, this is when I connect my points. So I'm going to connect this right here and this right here. So you should always have 2 lines that just go out in each direction. Okay. And I have to write equations for my asymptotes. This is where it gets a little bit more complicated, so pay really close attention right here. So it's still rise over run, so we can still write our slope. So if we went up 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 5. So this number right here is 4 over 5. But then I'm going to use my center for this, and it's going to be x, and it's all minus 4, and this is going to be y plus 1. So it's just always the opposite. Okay. Always the opposite. And then you have to do the negative also. So that's going to be y plus 1 equals negative 4 over 5 x minus 4. So you just always do the opposite. Okay. And then at this point, I can just graph this. And you just go from your vertice and you go out towards the asymptotes. Don't ever cross them though. Okay. I apologize like deeply from the very depths of my soul for the length of this video. I didn't mean to do it. Sorry. Love you guys. Bye.